Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The barrel of the suppressed pistol pressed against my forehead was cold, but the hand holding it, trembling with a cocktail of rage and betrayal, burned with a feverish heat I knew too well. "One step," Cashin growled, his voice a jagged ruin of the smooth baritone that usually commanded boardrooms and underground auctions alike. "Take one more step toward that elevator, Julian, and I will paint this marble with your brains. Do not test me." I didn't blink. I couldn't afford to. In the 5 years I had served as his handler, his keeper, and his roommate within this gilded cage of a penthouse, I had stared down assassins, corporate saboteurs, and federal agents. I had never feared them. But looking into Cashin Blackwood's eyes, irises the color of shattered storm clouds, dilated and manic, I felt the first true tremors of terror. Not for my life, but for the devastating reality that had forced me to pack my bags in the dead of night. "You won't shoot," I said softly, my grip tightening on the handle of my leather weekender bag. "You need me too much to kill me. And that, Cashin, is exactly why I have to leave." "You don't get to decide what I need," he roared, and the safety clicked off. The sound echoed like a thunderclap in the vast, empty luxury of the foyer. "You belong to the firm. You belong to the protocol. You belong to me." "I did," I corrected, my heart fracturing in my chest. "Until last night. To understand why a man would walk willingly into the barrel of a gun held by the person he loved, you have to understand the silence." For most of the world, Cashin Blackwood was the terrifying prodigy of the Blackwood Syndicate, a corporate raider by day, a ruthless chaotic element by night. He was beautiful in the way a forest fire is beautiful, destructive, mesmerizing, and untouchable. But to me, the live-in consultant hired to manage his dissociative episodes and chronic insomnia, he was simply the ghost. We lived in a sprawling penthouse overlooking the weeping skyline of Seattle. It was a fortress of glass and steel, designed to keep the world out and Cashin's demons in. For 5 years, we danced a delicate waltz. I managed his schedule, his medications, and his sanity. He, in turn, tolerated my presence, treating me as a fixture of his life, vital, yet part of the furniture. I had broken the cardinal rule of the handler: never fall in love with the asset. It was a slow, agonizing death. It was in the way he would wander into the kitchen at 2 a.m., shirtless and scarred, demanding herbal tea. It was in the rare, fleeting moments of clarity where he would look at me with exhaustion and whisper, "Thank you, Jules," making my name sound like a prayer. I absorbed his trauma, grounded him during his panic attacks, and played the stoic monk while my soul caught fire every time he brushed past me in the hallway. But I could handle the distance. I could handle the unrequited longing. What I couldn't handle was the hope. It happened 18 hours ago. The night had been vicious. A storm was battering the glass walls of the penthouse, the lightning turning the living room into a strobe-lit nightmare. Cashin had been spiraling all week, the pressure of a hostile takeover from the Triad weighing on his fractured psyche. He hadn't slept in 3 days. I was in the library reviewing security protocols when I heard the crash from his master suite. I didn't hesitate. I sprinted down the corridor, overriding the biometric lock on his door. The room was in chaos. The bedside lamp was shattered, the silk sheets torn from the mattress. Cashin was huddled in the corner of the room, pressed against the floor-to-ceiling window, shaking violently. He was caught in a night terror, trapped somewhere between the waking world and the hellscape of his memories. "Cashin," I called out, keeping my voice low and steady. I moved slowly, hands visible. "It's Julian. You're safe. You're in the tower. Look at me." He looked up, and the raw vulnerability on his face nearly brought me to my knees. He was sweating, his black hair matted to his forehead, his chest heaving as he gasped for air that seemed too thin to sustain him. "They're coming," he rasped, his eyes unseeing. "The water. It's rising, Julian." "There is no water," I said, kneeling before him. I didn't touch him, not yet. Touch could be a trigger. "Just rain. Listen to it." It's just rain on the glass. I sat with him for an hour, talking him down from the ledge of his mind. I recited the stock prices, the weather report, the chemical composition of the sedative I had in my pocket but refused to use unless necessary. Slowly, the tension drained from his shoulders. His breathing synced with mine. He slumped forward, his forehead resting heavily against my shoulder. I froze. This was new. Usually, once the episode passed, he would recoil, ashamed of his weakness. But tonight, he leaned into me, his hands gripping the fabric of my dress shirt like a lifeline. "Don't leave," he mumbled, his voice thick with exhaustion. "I'm not going anywhere, Cashin," I whispered, my hand instinctively coming up to stroke the back of his neck, soothing the tension there. It was a mistake. A selfish, indulgent mistake. He shifted, lifting his head. The lightning flashed, illuminating his face inches from mine. His pupils were blown wide, black holes swallowing the gray. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking through me, searching for something to anchor him to reality. "Jules," he breathed, and then he surged forward. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a collision. His mouth crashed onto mine with a desperation that tasted of salt and hysteria. It was wet, messy, and devastating. For a split second, my professional brain screamed at me to push him away, to sedate him, to establish boundaries. But my heart, that traitorous organ, silenced the logic. Kissed him back. I opened my mouth to him, and he groaned, a low, guttural sound that vibrated against my lips. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer until there was no air left between us. He kissed me as if I were the oxygen and he was drowning. It was a kiss of possession, of terrified need. For 5 years I had starved for this. I let myself believe, for just a moment, that this was real, that he saw me. We collapsed backward onto the rug, his weight pressing me into the plush fibers. His lips moved from my mouth to my jaw, then down to the pulse point of my neck. I gasped, arching into him, my hands finding the scars on his back. "Cashin," I whispered, broken. "Cashin, please." He stopped. His breathing was ragged against my skin. He stayed there for a long moment, his face buried in the crook of my neck, inhaling my scent. Then his weight grew heavy. The frantic energy dissipated, replaced by the deep, rhythmic breathing of sleep. He had passed out. The exhaustion had finally claimed him, his body shutting down the moment he found comfort. I lay there on the floor for another hour, holding the most dangerous man in Seattle in my arms, tears streaming silently down my face into his hair. I knew, with a sickening certainty, that morning would bring ruin. And it did. Sunlight pierced the room, sharp and unforgiving. I had moved him to the bed and retreated to the guest bathroom to wash the scent of him off my skin, though it felt tattooed onto my soul. When I walked into the kitchen, dressed in my crisp suit, armed with coffee and a tablet, Cashin was already at the island. He looked impeccable. The monster of the night before was gone, replaced by the CEO. He was reading a report on his phone, sipping an espresso. "Morning," he said, not looking up. His voice was cool, detached. I froze in the doorway. "Good morning, Cashin." I waited. I waited for a flicker of acknowledgement. A glance. An awkward clearing of the throat. Anything that suggested he remembered the way he had devoured me on the floor. "Schedule looks tight today," he said, scrolling. "Cancel the lunch with the Russians. And call Dr. Eris. I need a higher dosage." I blinked, the tablet in my hand feeling like lead. "A higher dosage?" "The nightmares," he said, finally looking at me. His eyes were clear, empty of the heat that had consumed me hours ago. "They were bad last night. I don't remember much, just noise, and the feeling of drowning. I woke up with a migraine." He didn't remember, or worse, he had buried it so deep in his psyche that it didn't exist. "You don't remember anything else?" I asked, my voice steady only through years of practice. He frowned, a microscopic crease between his brows. "Should I? Did I break something?" "No," I said, the word tasting like ash. You didn't break anything. Except me. He nodded, dismissing the conversation, and went back to his phone. Make sure the car is ready in 10. That was the moment I knew I had to run. If he remembered and was pretending not to, he was cruel. If he genuinely didn't remember, then I was nothing more than a glorified teddy bear he used to soothe his subconscious, to be discarded when the sun rose. I could not be his anchor if the rope was wrapped around my neck, choking the life out of me. I spent the day arranging the handover. I contacted the agency. I cited personal emergency. I packed my life into 2 bags while he was at the office. But I had underestimated his surveillance. I was at the elevator, the private lift that opened directly into the foyer, when the override chimed. The doors didn't open. Instead, the heavy oak front doors of the penthouse burst open. Cashin stood there. He had run up 10 flights of stairs because I had disabled the elevator for him. He was heaving, his tie undone, his suit jacket gone. And now here we were. The gun. The threat. The truth hanging in the air like guillotine blade. You didn't answer me? Cashin snarled, bringing me back to the present. The gun didn't waver. Why? Why now? You've seen me covered in blood. You've seen me at my worst. Why are you running? Because you kissed me, I screamed. The silence that followed was absolute. The gun lowered, just an inch. Cashin's face went slack. The rage momentarily stunned out of him. What? Last night? I said, my voice trembling now. I let the facade drop. I let him see the 5 years of pathetic devotion. You were terrified. I held you, and you kissed me. You kissed me like you wanted to consume me. Cashin. And this morning, you asked for a sedative and treated me like staff. I took a step toward him, heedless of the weapon. I can handle your enemies. I can handle your trauma. But I cannot handle being your midnight comfort that you forget by dawn. I am not a ghost, Cashin. I am a man. And I am in love with you. The confession hung there, raw and bleeding. Cashin stared at me. His chest rose and fell rapidly. He looked down at the gun in his hand as if he'd forgotten he was holding it, then engaged the safety and tossed it onto the sofa with a careless clatter. He walked toward me. He didn't run, he stalked. I didn't forget, he whispered. I froze. You said, I lied. He cut me off. He was right in front of me now, invading my space, his heat radiating off him. He reached out, his hand shaking slightly as he grabbed the lapels of my coat. I lied, Julian, because it terrified me. Terrified you? I laughed bitterly. You're the Viper of Seattle. You aren't afraid of anything. I am afraid of wanting you, he hissed, shaking me slightly. I am broken, Julian. I am a ruin. If I touch you, I will stain you. I woke up this morning with the taste of you on my lips and I thought if I ignored it, if I pretended it was just the madness speaking, I could keep you safe. I could keep you pure. He looked at my suitcases, then back at my eyes. The gray in his irises swirled with a possessive darkness. But then I saw the notification that you were leaving. His voice dropped to a growl. And I realized I would burn this entire city to the ground before I let you walk out that door. You can't keep me here, Cashin, I said, though my resolve was crumbling. Not as your employee. Not anymore. No, he agreed. His hands slid up from my lapels to cup my face. His thumbs traced my cheekbones, his touch reverent. Not as an employee. Then what? I challenged him. What am I? Cashin leaned down, his forehead resting against mine. You are the tether, he murmured. You are the only thing that keeps the abyss from swallowing me whole. I tried to push you away to save you, but I'm selfish. I am a selfish, greedy monster. He pulled back just enough to look me in the eye. Unpack your bags, Julian. That's an order? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. It's a plea, he said, and the vulnerability in his eyes was devastating. Stay. Stay and let me remember. Stay and let me ruin you properly. He didn't wait for an answer. He kissed me. This time it wasn't frantic. It wasn't the kiss of a man in a nightmare. It was deliberate, It was slow, deep, and claiming. He kissed me with the intent of a man signing a contract in blood. He tasted of espresso and danger. I dropped the bag. My hands found his waist, pulling him closer, sealing my fate. I knew I should run. I knew he was dangerous, that loving him was like loving a hurricane. But as his arms wrapped around me, locking me against him like a vice, I knew I wasn't going anywhere. I'm staying, I breathed against his lips. Good, Cashin growled, biting my lower lip, because the elevator is disabled and I changed the codes. You were never leaving, Julian. I just needed you to admit why you wanted to. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf, by admitting he was the one who needed the leash. If you enjoyed seeing Julian finally crack the armor of his obsessive boss, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments. Would you stay with a monster who breaks your heart every sunrise just to put it back together at night? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then.